I'm your host, Jason Tartick, and welcome to Trading Secrets. We talk all things money on this podcast, and we're teaching all the stuff we just weren't taught in the classroom. Nothing supports this show more than liking, commenting, and of course, subscribing. Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today we are joined by professional dancer, choreographer, singer, songwriter, musician, actor. I mean, I could just keep going, but I'll take a breather there. He's very well known for his time on ABC's Dancing with the Stars, Mark Ballas. From 2007 to 2022, Mark has set and broken numerous records and established himself as one of the top dancers and choreographers in Dancing with the Stars history, having tallied 3 titles, seasons 6, 8, and 31, and 4 runner-up finishes, seasons 14, 19, 22, 25. Outside of his time on the show, he has gathered numerous acting accolades and also formed a pop rock musical duo with his wife, BC, called Alexander Jean. We're going to discuss professional and financial ins and outs of his career, dancing, acting, music, and where he sees his future of his career evolving to next. Mark, I only touched the surface of some of the stuff you did in that intro, but thank you for being on Trading Secrets.
Thank you for having me.
You've
done your research.
An artist in its purest form. Now, typically what I'll do, Mark, is we'll start from like the ground up to get you where you are today. But there's so many moving parts in your life currently. I want to kind of start right now.
Sure. Yeah.
You have this interesting career side of you that is so successful and so massive, but also a little bit of a mystery, right? Okay. You come in, you come out. You're hot, you're out. Social media, nowhere to be found. Now you got engagement off the charts. So talk to me just a little bit about the thought process of some of the breaks that you've taken with social media, with dancing, and what, just why is that? Talk to me about it.
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I think, honestly, and I've talked about this in the past with friends and stuff, it's like I'm the type of person when I'm doing something, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. Like I want to know everything about it. Like my buddy Derek, who's also on the show, we grew up together, we've trained together, we moved out here to do the show together, and that's something he'll always say. It's like whether it's learning how to make the perfect vanilla latte, or I was a big whiskey guy for a minute, and I would like make my own ice cubes, and they had to be super clear. And then from little things like that to dancing, playing music, guitar playing. Like when I'm in, I'm all in. And then also when I'm taking a break, I'm taking a break. So I try my best to apply myself 100% to everything I'm doing, 200% if possible.
Sure.
Otherwise, I just can't. Like I have to be.
Is there like a little bit of perfectionist in there then? So it's like if you're doing it, it's got to be perfect, and if you're not doing it,
I don't know if it's about being a perfectionist for me, but it is giving more about applying myself to the fullest that I possibly can. Okay. Like I hate to look back and think I could have tried harder, I could have learned more. I'm a sucker for information on whatever it is that I'm showing interest in, and whether that's being like, I'll just use Dancing with the Stars as an example, like being a pro for 20 seasons and kind of seeing every possible outcome that there can be. Like I've been eliminated first, I've won it before, I've overscored, underscored, I've been in the final, I've not made the final, I still, on my last season that I did just 2 years ago, I still feel like I was learning. Mm-hmm. I trained intensely for it. I flew my mom out to get me in shape for it. Wow. So I try to think of myself as always learning, no matter what it is and what the craft is. Like I try to be intentional about, there's always new ways to do things. There's always a different way to look at it, even though you've done the same thing on repeat. It may be the same 10 dances, but there's so many more ways to do them that I have yet to do. And there's so many more things about that I'm still learning. Like I'll have conversations with my mom, who is one of the best coaches in that field, and
one of the best in the world. We'll talk about your mom.
She'll give me tidbits, and I'm like, oh yeah, like after all these years, I didn't ever think of that.
Look at that. I mean, she's referred to as Queen of Latin.
She
is. I mean, like she is one of the most renowned and decorated dancers in the world. I'm going to ask you about that. Yeah. Before I do, though, let's stay on this topic of taking a break and knowing when to do it. I think, of course, artists like yourself struggle with that. I struggle with it.
Yeah.
Anybody that's listening to this, teacher, doctor, lawyer, attorney, whatever they are, whatever they're doing, that's the biggest issue, I think, especially this, like in 2024, these connections, these phones, they drain us. So season,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah. So season 31, you win with Charlie D'Amelio.
Yep.
You guys absolutely kill it. You get, I mean, just it was unbelievable. The finale. What made you decide that season that you're like, I'm going to take a break? I don't even know if I'm going to come back. What was the breaking point? How do you identify it?
Well, honestly, I'd taken a long break before that season, and it was actually a 5-year break, which was the longest one I'd taken. And then before the season before that, I'd taken a year break as well. I wouldn't say I took like a social media break or any of that. It was just a break from competing on the show. So after Charlie, like, I was very intentional knowing that that was my 20th season going in. And when I came back into it, a big part of the reason I wanted to come back was because of the producers that were in charge. It was Conrad Green, and Dina Katz, all the originals who started it. And that was like very exciting for me to go back to it. But I was
just question: have they cycled out and then back in?
Yes. So Conrad started it, and then he ran the show for a long time and was a big part of the success, along with a fantastic team of other producers.
Sure.
And Dina Katz, who's been casting it from the get-go, who is brilliant at what she does. So when I got the call about coming back for 31, you know, I was like, who's producing it? And it was like Conrad. I was like, okay, I'm interested. You know.
Did you get the calls the year prior? You just turned it down, or did you not get the call?
Well, I had been intentional about doing other things. Like I'd done some Broadway shows. My wife and I do our music gig, and we travel and we tour and play shows and stuff like that. And I was just doing other things, so there wasn't like the phone ringing every season. However, like I never felt like the door was closed. Especially like I have great relationships with the producers, and I'm sure if we had got on a call and had an open discussion about, hey, do you want to come back? What are you thinking? Blah 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 blah.
Sure.
That would have been there, but during those 5 years, I was very much on a. It's not retirement because I never formally said that, but a hiatus. I was doing other things. So.
Okay. So we saw you this year as a judge. Now, the big question, I mean, when I said that I'm having you on the podcast, the number one thing I got was, will we ever see him as a dancing pro again? So what is your thought when you think about career navigation in the future?
As a pro on the show?
As a pro on the show.
As of now, I feel like the competitive side is closed. Like after Charlie, I kind of voice those words of like, I'm retiring as a professional, like just from the 10 weeks of competing. 20 seasons I feel like was a lot, and also like a monumental time in my life. You know, before Charlie's season, my wife and I had been trying for a family, and now we have a son, and there's just a lot of other things that I'm excited about right now. Number one being a dad, you know. So as far as being a pro, I'm very much so a never say never person, and I'm always open to a conversation. Yeah. But as of now, I couldn't see myself competing as of now.
Okay. When you say the competing side feels like that day is closed, is that something, do you, as an athlete, do you just know that? Or is it like, because I would assume that's been instilled on you since day one. You look at all your accolades, like competitors, probably one of your top 5 words to describe you. Does one day it just say like, I did it?
Yeah, you know, like before I did Dancing with the Stars, I did compete in the ballroom and Latin world, which is a whole different world in itself. That, you know, our industry is very small, and people in that industry understand it and what the schedule is like and how grueling it is, because it is. And I'd actually decided to stop competing from that when I was, I think, 18 or 19, because I didn't really. I love the dancing. I love the creative part. I love choreography. I love creating, but I just didn't want to do that anymore. And I went to music college and musical theater college, and I wanted to do theater, and I wanted to play music, and then move more into choreography, and the creative side was something that was always really appealing for me. So that said, on Dancing with the Stars, you get to do that because, you know, as the pro, you have to choreograph. It also depends, like on your get down. Like some pros like having their music given to them. Like I'm hands-on. Like I gotta love the song. Sometimes I'll do my own edits. I'm very hands-on with designing the costume. I'm like, it's gotta.
Every week you were doing that?
I am,
Costume
like,
design,
that's
all of them?
With the team. Like,
but not every pro's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make suggestions, but because I've had so much experience, and also coming up, watching my mom and dad compete and being around it. I know what works.
Yeah.
And I know what doesn't work. And I know what doesn't work because I've made mistakes in wearing certain costumes and outfits and stuff like that. So I'll use Charlie as an example. Like, we were very hands-on about what she was going to wear, how the hair was going to be. Wow. But again, with Steven and Daniela, the wardrobe department, they're the best at what they do.
Yeah.
And even sometimes I'll come in with an idea and Daniela might be like, well, what if we did that, but like this? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So they are just some of the best. And also wanting to hear what Charlie was comfortable in wearing and how we can turn her creative ideas into something appropriate for the dance style that week,
Interesting. I get why maybe you might need a break from it. Like, that is so taxing.
For me to do
that's a lot.
For me to do it well, like it's all of it.
Yeah.
I just gotta, like, 20 seasons is...
It's a lot. One hell of a run.
Yeah, it's like almost half my life, I think.
Almost. Yeah. And there's a lot of records that you broke. I have some here for all our listeners. You got the highest premiere score of a 27. That was on season 6 with Christy Yamaguchi. You are the pro with the most partners who received at least one score of a 9 on premiere night, seasons 5, 6, 14, 18, and 19. Only male pro to place the same in finals twice in a row without winning, season 11, 12. Pro to finish in second place with the most times. That's 14, 19, 22. Pro to make the finals the most times. You've appeared 11 times in the finals, according to all of our research. So you're in the history books.
Wow, I was overwhelmed by that.
Wow, you like that? You're like, you're about to shed a tear.
When I hear you say that, like, it's funny. It's just, it's I don't know. It's a trip. It's a trip.
It's unbelievable.
But it's a lot. A lot of time. A lot of hours went into that. And I think also when I started, I was 21. I was a kid. Just moved here from England. I had no idea about. If you'd asked me this when I was back in high school and college, I would have. You're gonna do that. I was like, no way. No. Like, it's really quite overwhelming.
Somewhat surreal. We're going to get back into those days you came on, but the big thing, again, kind of going back to it, and congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
Is the judging element. People loved you as a judge.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What was probably the most eye-opening thing as someone who's been on the show for 20 years and then went into the judge table? And, it's fun, even I look at one of my past relationships, she was the bachelorette, but then she was the co-host for a season. Is a pro dancer, and then someone as a judge table. Like, what are some of the biggest differences, or maybe even the most surprising things that you didn't expect?
I'd had a season when Julianne was a judge, and then I took a long break, and then I had Derek as a judge. And I think for me, it's really cool because A, I grew up with both of them, and so we know each other well. But B, it's nice to have someone on the panel that's walked this, who's been out there, who's broken a sweat, who's had to be in the trench, because you get to. It starts, it's fun, it's exciting, and then you get to like week 4 and it gets a little more intense, 5, 6, and then you get into the trench, which is 7, 8, 9, and 10. And those weeks it's fun, it's exciting, you're in it, you're rehearsing for all hours of the day. And having a judge that has experience that, I think, is important. So I think it was cool to have 2 up there, myself and Derek, that have been on the show together the same amount of time, but also had 2 very different experiences. And look at, even though we were trained together, we have danced together our whole lives, we also see things differently and we help each other out. And I thought that was exciting, hopefully for the audience. And it was also I said this to Derek, I was like, wow, after 20 seasons on the show, still being able to find a new experience for me is tough.
Yeah.
Because
you've seen it all.
I've seen it all. So being at the judges' table was, again, a whole new experience. It was pretty cool. Like, I remember when the show started, sitting up there and, like, at the table, I'm just being like, oh, yeah. Because I'd never sat there before either,
Of course. You think you're more nervous for finale, like going into it, like with Charlie, or more nervous to judge?
There's such both intense, nerve-wracking experiences in different ways. Okay. I think with Charlie, Charlie's season for me, like, there was a big turning point after her contemporary dance where, yes, she was gifted, she worked hard, and we got to that dance, and after that one, like, the improvement, like, I started to see, like, massive improvement. And I think a big part of that is attributed to her attitude. Like, she showed up every day, Not just literally, I mean, shoes on, phone down, focus, like we were in it, you know?
Yeah.
And when we got to that finale, we had just come off a really good week of the Viennese Waltz, which is one of my favorite dances I've ever done to this day, and the Paso Doble, where she got really great scoring. And when you have a week like that, you're like, oh, I got to keep the momentum going.
Sure.
So like that is definitely a set of nerves in its own.
Yeah.
Right. And also just staying focused.
Okay.
Like I'd always say to Charlie, like when we get out there, well, Michael Phelps. I always use Michael Phelps as an example.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen the picture
dying.
of him in the pool.
He's just dying.
Where his competitor's looking at him and he's just dead straight. Like I always use that as an example.
That's a good one.
Whereas the judging thing, it's not nerves for me because as a judge, I felt a responsibility to help the contestants. You know, I think when you're a judge, yes, you're up there, you're speaking, you're giving your point of view, right, whatever. But I always found as a competitor when I had something to take with me into the next couple of weeks, that was when I was like, okay, this is tangible. I can take this. I can look at this in the mirror. I can work on it. Versus, hey, you did this dance. This could have been better.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but next time do this. But there isn't a next time. Like next time, I'm not doing this dance again.
Right.
Unless I randomly get it in the redemption round.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, if I'm judging, I want to be able to give them something moving forward. Hey, here's a tip. This could have been better this week.
Yeah.
You did this great.
Yeah.
Moving forward, let's try and do this because, you know, for the super fans of the show and people understand there's 5 ballroom dances, there's 5 Latin dances.
Right.
Yes, they're all different, but there are things that are a through line that work in all of them.
Totally.
So I was very intentional about, like, I really want to give them something moving forward.
That's cool. I love it. When you think about, you know, here's the thing I'll never forget is Derek's, like, he was taking notes at your notes you were providing while it was happening. But I always think
He was also switching my paddles.
He was always switching. He was kind of messing with it. He's we're boys. We're going to have a good time here.
Yeah. Like, I went to pull an 8 and it was a 6. And I looked at him and he was like, dude, come on, man. It's first time on the job.
Like, give him a breather. It's like the senior with the rookie for a second, even though you're far from that. But I always think about the judges have notes and then they take notes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how many times do you get to see it before you're actually judging it? Do you get to see
You're in it. You're in it. I think.
Do you get to see the dance before their practice rounds at all?
You don't get to see any footage before show day.
Oh, wow.
None.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So you don't know what the week's been like. You don't know you don't know what dances they're getting until, I mean, they do press releases and everyone knows, and you can see those.
Yeah.
However, you don't know what the week has been like or what the struggle has been or this, that, and the other. Like, so you kind of come in on show day, like having to give some sort of substance for them moving forward, you know, which was interesting because I went back and studied. I watched season 31, 32, and 33 to get ready for this because I just wanted to watch
what people do. You watched every episode?
I watched every episode.
To prepare for it?
Yeah.
Wow.
The last 3. Because that's me. Like, I'm intense.
You really do it. You do.
Yeah, I
got to
do it. So
that's like your secret sauce. So you just go all in.
I got to go all in. Yeah. Otherwise, I can't do it. So I went back and watched every episode that was available on Disney Plus. That included Charlie's season, and I would score. I scored everything before the judges would score. You know, just to practice.
Yeah.
And then also you have to make quick notes and like. On the day when I judged this season, you know, I would write notes down and I would have my wording. But if another judge hits the comment you're going to make, you got to move on.
You got to shift.
You got to shift.
Can't copy
because you
and
can't
paste.
just say the same thing over and over again. Like, not because you can't, because that's not helpful.
Sure.
You know, it's not helpful. Like, you just heard that already. So what can I? So I was constantly trying to make moves on the fly. And I still like at the end of the day, I was like, oh, God, I had a couple more notes. And then you've got the ticker counting down. Yep. So I did my best.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Do you think in the future, possibly full-time judge again? What do you think?
I mean, I'm not sure where they have had 4 before.
Yep.
And I know in Strictly they have 4, and there's other countries they have 4. It works great with 3 as well. But, you know, I would always, again, never say never.
Never say never.
I would be open to the conversation. But I enjoyed it. And, you know, I do think that I have a lot of experience that could help, and you know, we'll see.
Okay, we're gonna go backwards in a minute. Before we go backwards, you know, you kind of mentioned probably not pro dancer again, but maybe being a judge. We'll see.
Yep.
But what do you like in a world where your craft is your art, and your art is so many things between acting, dancing, singing, music, all the things? What do you see as next? And do you create a blueprint for like 1, 2, 5 years from now? How do you plan for the future with your career in a space that's literally a pure form? It's a mosaic. It's not a blueprint.
Yeah, it's also a different time. Like I feel like with the powers of social media and when I was younger and up and coming, like I felt like it was kind of odd to be multifaceted and almost not always accepted in the sense of like, oh, well, you do this, so you can't possibly do that. But that's how I was raised. Like I went to musical theater school where half the day was academics and the other half was acting, music theater, dancing lessons, music lessons. So that was the school I went to. Derek and I went to the same school. And
is that like for like university, or like are you saying as a child?
Yeah, it was high
like,
school and college.
Wow, so it was almost like a prep school, like in high school.
Yeah, so like in England, high school, I started that school at 11 and then graduated high school at 16, and then I went to the college, which is 16 to 19.
Do people have to like try out to get into that school?
Yeah, you have to
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
So you have to obviously try out for the academics, but then you also have to show an element of everything. You have to prepare a dance, you have to prepare a song, you have to prepare a monologue, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
And Derek and I went to that school in the UK together.
Okay.
So that's how I was raised. And my parents were also, if I had interest in something, whether it be guitar lessons or vocal lessons or rollerblading, whatever it is, they were also always very supportive. So my life growing up was I went to musical theater school during the day, and then let's say on a Monday night, I would have a guitar lesson. Tuesday night, I would have an extra ballroom and Latin lessons. Wednesday night, I'd have band practice with my buddies who would play guitar. So I was always doing something like that. And then on the weekends, we would compete ballroom dancing. That was my whole life. So my life wasn't just this.
It was never linear.
Yeah, it was never linear. It's always been, even from, my dad's American, my mom's British. I was born in America. I moved to England when I was 2. I was there until I was 21. So my life has always been this, and I feel like we live in a time now where with social media, you get to know people, and like seeing people have more than one talent or more than one dream or more than one skill set is very much acceptable now. So that's exciting, because I've always tried to be an advocate for that. Like, hey, you like to play guitar and sing and you want to dance too, and also ride BMX bikes?
Yeah,
do
it.
That.
Okay.
One life, like
one life,
do
one
that.
shot.
Do it.
Rip
do it all. Like, so that's always just kind of been the vibe of my life. It's kind of all of it all at once.
All right, give me we got a crystal ball here. You gotta predict what you think it might be. What is the it could be a year, 2 years, the future of Mark Ballas. Where do you see it possibly going? Like what do you have, a dream or an idea, something you want to accomplish? What do you think the career move could be?
This is not going to be an exciting answer for you.
Okay. No, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I'll tell you why, because whenever I've done this, and mood board and stuff, which I do every year, like coming up on New Year's, my wife and I, we mood board every year. Oh, we want to do this, we're going to do this. And I would say 99%.
Do you do that on New Year's Eve?
We do it around that time. I wouldn't say every time, but we sit down, we talk about goals and not just work and financial. We talk about life and trips and relationship and personal goals as well that we want to achieve. But it's great to set them, but I also say that like the universe just kind of takes you on the ride as well. Mm-hmm. And I read The Power of Now, and after I read that, I'm just kind of like trying my best to be present at all times, because I always had a tendency to be like, oh, I got to get to
that's
this,
my
and
issue.
Do this,
I'm always there.
And then I just noticed that when the things were happening, I was kind of like getting into the next thing. Right? Yeah. Now, however, setting goals, I'm a big list maker. Yeah. I love to make lists, whether it's my daily schedule or dreams or goals and now being a dad. But if you were to ask me now, I would love to. My wife and I, when my son was born, we took a break from social media.
Sure.
Work. We were very intentional about being home with
How long of a break did you take?
Well, I would say like the last time I had posts on socials was probably at the top of the year. I can't remember. And then I just recently got back on. And he was born in November last year. So after he was born, it was the holidays. Yeah. And then we've just been immersed in mom and dad mode, right?
Wait, this is unbelievable. So your son is born.
Yes.
And you and your wife take off from everything.
Pretty much.
And just like spend in the present of being with your child for the first year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that was we were intentional about that. That said, when the pandemic happened, we built like a little home studio setup. Wife's a songwriter.
Yeah, of course.
We built this home setup. So we had so much inspiration from being parents and also being home that we worked a lot from home when he was there. And when I say work, I mean creative work, writing and creating ideas and this, that, and the other. And within this year, our hard drive is filled with lots of ideas. So one of my goals, the reason I'm saying that is one of my goals.
In this year, though, you're very present, right?
Yes.
But you're also idea generating.
Oh, yeah. But
it's unbelievable.
But while being in mom and dad mode, and like sitting with him and playing guitar and like, just being present and not being on our phones and being outside touching grass, taking him on walks, doing all that stuff. But we were writing a lot because when we are in a creative space or like when we're in a place like that, it was inspiring.
Yeah.
Like being home with our son, we've written so many songs. So the reason I'm saying that is that is one thing I want to do within the next year is to go on that hard drive and see what we like.
That's
and
cool.
Finish it.
Yeah.
Because it's like they could just sit there forever, or we can take initiative and finish what we started and get it out into the world. So that's one goal. I would love to get back on Broadway at some point.
Okay.
And then also move into some creative choreography, kind of more behind the scenes, not where I'm having to get out there and compete and do it. Like I would love to do some other choreography work like that.
Okay.
I would love to be a part of an original Broadway cast at some point.
Wow.
And then just get this music out with my wife and tour the country with her and take our son on a wild adventure around the country or the world,
I love it.
Those are some things that we'd like to do.
Those are just a few. And then you got a hard drive of about 1,000 other, creative in its finest form. Now, your wife, BC, she wrote If I Were a Boy for Beyonce, right?
Did, yes.
And we've already talked about a lot of your accolades. This is also a finance business podcast. So of all these big things, right?
Yeah.
Having, Emmy nominations and being World Choreograph Award winner and writing songs for Beyonce, between the two of you, you guys have done a lot. Which financially, like of all the different things you've done, which financially has been like your mirror ball? What's been the big thing that's like changed your life financially? Because you talked about the fact that it's a relationship you sit down and kind of talk about all goals, even financial.
Sure. I mean, at some point, I think you should have a conversation with her.
Yeah,
to
I would love to.
explain how,
I would love to.
The music industry is forever changing. And, back when that happened, it was like publishing and all that stuff was, very lucrative in a different sense to what it is now with streaming. Like when we talk about this all the time. When BC wrote that song, streaming didn't exist. So now it's a whole different thing for songwriters with master splits. But you should have that conversation with her because it's quite fascinating.
Okay.
But for me, I wouldn't say there's been like one thing that was like, yo, this just changed the game for me. But it's been an accumulation of all the things. Again, my life, it's dancing, Broadway, choreography, making music, and then also just trying my best to be as financially intelligent as I can, which I'm still learning, and I'm quite I wouldn't say I'm a spender. I'd like to treat myself. I love to treat my wife and now my son and stuff like that, and that gives me more joy than buying stuff for myself, hence why I'm always usually in the same white t-shirt, Dickies pants, and a leather jacket.
There's some financial method to the madness.
I
like it.
I drive a Jeep. It's all good. When I was younger, I drove an Audi and stuff. I drive a Jeep, and
I like it.
But it's been years of keeping it moving. For me, and then. From years of keeping it moving, I was able to find stillness at the time where I wanted it the most, and that's when I became a dad.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And now he's a full-on little boy who's going to walk any second, and now it's time to get back out there and work and be creative and exercise that muscle and have him see mom and dad doing these things that we do. And but it's been just, I would say, an accumulation of just all of it.
I like it. When you said the book that you read was The Power of Now.
Power of Now.
Give us just one biggest takeaway from it. Because I've been hearing words stillness. I'm hearing words be present. We saw that you took a year off to be with your wife and your newborn. Like, give us the biggest takeaway from that book. Because I think people could learn from it.
It's literally the stillness of being in the in this moment right now.
Second,
this
nothing
second,
else.
like this conversation that we're having. Like I'm not thinking about where I'm going tonight.
Yeah.
Or like even like I try, like if I'm somewhere and there's friends or people, like I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I'm not looking over your shoulder for what's the next conversation. I'm not thinking about anything else, right, than being present. And I've noticed that I read that book during COVID when I think it was a stressful time for everyone.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing but sitting with yourself and your thoughts and stuff like that, right? And as a creative person, I'm sure anybody, like, you want to do the thing that you love, or you have to go to work and stuff like that. And it was such a different time. So when I read that book, like, just really surrendering to where you are, why you're there, and not letting the mind or the egoic mind, as it says in the book, like consume you, you know? So when I was on the show with Charlie, I was on the show with Charlie. When I'm writing with my wife or we're creating something, I am there 100%. When I'm being asked to judge, like, oh, we're doing that now, you know, like, I try not to think ahead and look, I'm not perfect. I have those moments where I'm like, no.
Bring it back,
because that's human, right?
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, like that, I will say that book helped me a lot during a weird time.
All right, I'm gonna get that book. We might have no, I haven't. And it's like literally my biggest struggle.
Bro.
The Alchemist. I haven't read either.
You got to read those
books. Guys, everyone listening, I'm going to text you after. We're going to read them, and then we're going to have the authors on, assuming they go to plan.
I downloaded it on my iPad.
Yeah.
I would just like highlight sections.
Yeah.
And like I would go back and read those sections. I still do it.
Okay.
Like,
interesting. All right, those books are happening.
So good.
I want to transition to Broadway. So you went on Broadway. We really don't know much about the business of Broadway.
Yeah.
My understanding is you're paid a weekly stipend based on your role. You're under the union. Talk to me about just kind of the business element of the Broadway space.
I mean, yeah, you kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have, and I'm sure the business has changed a bit now, because I feel like the business and everything is changing now.
Yeah.
Like even with choreography or doing on the show or whatever.
Dancing with the Stars is changing now.
It's different.
Dancing with the Stars is like a TikTok competition and a dancing competition.
Like we didn't have any of that when I was coming up, you know, like, so, and it's funny to see there's lots of new fans and, you know, to see how they interpret it or what they're thinking about it and who they're rooting for and why they're rooting for it. And, you know, and they don't know the history of the show or why it works or why the judges call certain things different. Sure. That's what makes it fun, right? Is that you can discover this at any age, and it's probably one of the only shows you can watch with every member of the family and have a blast doing it. You know, that's what I love mostly about the show. But yeah, I would say with the Broadway thing, it's probably different. So when I was on, last time I was on Broadway was in 2018 in Kinky Boots.
Okay.
But yeah, you have your salary, and there can be certain deals, I think, depending on ticket sales, you can get bonuses because, you know, shows goes like this.
Yeah.
It's like anything.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
But yeah, you kind of have your salary, and you're hitting 8 shows a week, and you're in the grind.
Which is more difficult?
8 shows a week.
That's why I want to ask. So, which is more difficult? Would you say one season Dancing with the Stars or Broadway, where you're doing 8 shows?
They're very different.
Yeah,
they're very difficult in 2 different ways. Like Charlie's making her Broadway debut right
That's
now.
right.
And you know, we chatted heavily about her going into it, and I was like, you'll get to, after your 6 weeks, 8 weeks of 8 shows a week, that's when you're like, oh, the respect that I have for all people that perform on Broadway, like the endurance, the energy, the discipline it takes, you know, because you always want to give the best show possible.
Sure.
Because you stop the same audience every night, you know.
Right.
So it's incredibly disciplined craft, and you have to take it very serious.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing both roles, actually, Charlie Price and Frankie Valli, like both big sings, big vocal roles, not just from the songs, but it's the scenes in between. You have to learn your pace, and you have to also know like when you hit the gas and then when you have to lay off, because you don't want to.
You'll lose your voice.
You'll lose your voice.
Yeah.
You'll lose your voice.
There's just no way to do it.
When I played Frankie, I did 6 shows because their setup was 6 and 2.
Yeah.
I know some other shows are like that too.
Okay.
But Charlie was 8 shows a week.
Damn, that's brutal.
It was like, it's intense, and you have to.
And you want to go back to that.
I love it. It's so fun. Not only is it fun, the community out there, the people.
Yeah.
Like I've made lifelong friends doing those shows that we still Like when I'm in New York, I'll hit up some of my Jersey boys, and they're like, "Ah, what's that?" Same with my family in Kinky Boots from the factory, But yeah, it's like my schedule was, I'd get up. We usually wouldn't talk until around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. And I lived in a building that had a steam room, which is like your voice's best friend. Yeah. And then they had like a small pool that I'd swim laps every day. And then I would jog to the theater, break sweat.
No words till 2 p.m.
None. Literally none. Like some tea.
You're
maybe.
Very fascinating human, so you wouldn't talk
like,
at all.
Literally, yeah. And my wife's a singer too. She's a big rock singer, so she understands. So,
is that a common thing for singers?
Yeah. I mean, 8-show-a-week singers. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, everybody's got their own system and their warm-ups and their warm-downs, but that was my, like, as much vocal rest as possible, and then, a very diligent warm-up to get you ready, and then I like to break a sweat before.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I think most people don't consider also is the cool down vocally. Like, you finish a 2-hour show, and then you want to warm your voice down.
Oh, interesting.
Bring it down.
God, then you're just silent for 12 hours.
You can talk, but
you're just keeping it
down. Yeah.
All right.
Without whispering.
Yeah.
You're not like, drying out your vocals.
Art is taking in a lot of directions. If we go back to school, what is this like? I'm just curious. What does a school like that cost? If someone wants to go to a school that's like a prep and university and it's art and also academic, what is like it's got to be expensive.
I imagine it was.
Yeah.
I was young at the time when I started it, and when I moved to the college, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship.
Okay,
so on the college, I had a scholarship. I'm not sure. My mom and dad were obviously taking care of me when I was a kid. Yeah.
When you graduate 21, and now you're in one of the most internationally known schools, and you have these unbelievable classmates and colleagues that you're working with. What did you like? What did your peers? What did you guys expect to do from that point? Where were you like, this is going to be the track?
I remember.
What were the dreams at 21?
Oh, it was just being on stage.
But is it more like movie? Is it more Broadway? Like, what's the dream for a dancer?
I think the cool thing about being at that school is that everyone had a big wide net of jobs. Like, we had songwriters at the school, we had dancers at the school, we had
singers.
It's a big theater school, so everyone shared that love of musical theater. And like, the dream of getting on the West End, which is because school's in England, so the West End is London's Broadway.
Okay,
that's like
that's right. Yeah.
And like winning an Olivier Award, and which is a Tony over here.
Okay.
So honestly, as a kid, like when I was at the school, the thought of being on Broadway was not even reachable for me.
What, like too far?
Yeah, because I grew up in the UK and I lived my whole life there. I never thought in a million years that I would move out here and then I would get to be in a Broadway show. Like, that was like
the dream come true.
Yeah, and I've had many friends from school who have also gone on to do big things in the West End, big plays, Broadway shows. So, but that was always the combo, like sitting around, be like, "Oh, what show would you want to be in? I'll be in this one." Like
interesting.
Yeah. It was...
So when was it and how was it that Dancing with the Stars at 21 finds you?
Okay, so when I was competing as a ballroom and Latin dancer, I competed pretty seriously from age 11 to 18.
Okay.
It's really difficult. Well, I would say it's almost impossible to do real competing and the show. Because back in the day, they had 2 seasons a year. There was spring season and the winter season.
Sure.
Now it's only 1.
Yeah.
So during the spring season, the biggest competition in the world, which is held at Blackpool, one of the biggest. There's a lot of big ones, but that's one of the most prestigious.
Yeah.
Is held at the same time. And then in the winter season, there's another one called the International, which is also held at the same time.
Okay.
So if you were competing on Dancing with the Stars and trying to be a serious competitive ballroom dancer, like the schedules
you'd burn out. You can't do it.
They just don't line up. Like, you wouldn't be able to do both. It's like so difficult. So once I had stopped competing as a competitor, we got approached from the show through, mutual connections. And then Derek and I both sent in tapes. I remember we went to the BBC in the UK and did a screen test, which they aired on the show. And it was
hilarious,
so embarrassing. I mean, embarrassing in the best way possible.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And then, we did the screen test. Didn't really think anything of it. Like, Derek was doing Footloose in the West End. And I had just come off the Buddy Holly musical UK national tour.
Yeah.
And then we got the call with, I think, 5 minutes apart. They were like, all right,
we're doing it.
Hey, we're interested. would you be down? You have to relocate to Los Angeles, and we had a few days to make the decision, like moving everything from England to there. Like we flew out to Los Angeles. My dad helped us get an apartment. I had a backpack, guitar case, and a suitcase, and that was it.
That was it?
And then we just moved into our like little apartment.
Did you guys live together?
Yeah, for the first couple of years, yeah.
Oh,
like little apartment, like down by the Grove.
Oh, God, that's unbelievable.
Good times.
That is good times.
But again, no idea what the show was going to be. Knew what it was because, we'd seen bits and they have it in England strictly.
Of course.
But just didn't realize, like, at the time.
What it would do for everything in your life and
just
all the things.
how much it would impact our lives.
Are there any celebs that you dance with that you still are pretty close with?
Yeah, I mean, I have a good relationships with, my partners, yeah.
Really? Who would you say, like, you're the closest with of all the years, if you look back on it? Who do you keep in touch with the most?
I speak to Sean Johnson a lot.
Oh, she's the best.
The best, yeah.
Yeah, she's so great.
Charlie, obviously.
Yeah.
But I saw Christy the other day she came to the 500th episode. It was so great to see her.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was crazy because she had brought one of her daughters who the last time I'd seen her, she was like little.
Interesting.
Taller than me now. But yeah, I have good relationships. Like when we see each other, it's always.
If they did like a superstar season,
would you All-Star season?
Yeah, like the All-Star season, would you then be a little bit more tempted to get back in the ring as a pro?
I don't know. They did it once. They did it in season. I don't know. I can't remember what the number. They all like bleed into one. I don't know. It just, never say never, but.
Okay, never say never. Another thing I found fascinating, I know I don't want to say but you were an extra in Harry Potter.
I was.
How do you land a gig like that? Like, what haven't you done, Mark?
Wow, you have done your research. So this is, I have to find the photo for you so you can,
we'll throw it on social media.
Day.
Oh, Derek's an extra too?
And Julianne.
Oh, get out of here.
We all went to the school together. Right?
Unbelievable.
So how it worked was Harry Potter was looking for extras. So what they ended up doing was hiring all the theater schools because all the kids are interested in film and theater and TV. So all the theater type schools in England were the extras.
Yeah.
So we would show up at school. They would bus us all the way to Hogwarts, and we got
that's pretty sweet.
We got put into our houses. Derek was a Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Julianne was a Gryffindor. I was a Hufflepuff. I was like, I'm Slytherin for sure. Or Gryffindor, and I was like, got Hufflepuff. Which, like, looking back, is actually pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Do you remember back then, like, for Harry Potter as an extra, like, what does someone get paid for something like that?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. Like, we were little.
Yeah, that's what I'm
13,
saying.
Maybe 14.
Like a couple $100, you think? Like if you had to guess.
Maybe.
Yeah. But it's just like
I'm not sure how they divvy that up.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it goes through the schools and stuff like that. But
all right.
It was funny. Like you can't see me on it at all.
Yeah.
However, at the time, I did have a mouthful of braces, and like I was really into Linkin Park, so it had like this red. Yeah. I was like really like. I was a big metalhead, so I wore a lot of stuff from Hot Topic.
Right.
And like the one time I was like, oh, I'm in the shot, they moved me out of it.
They just popped you out. Like, all right,
Linkin Park,
this dude out of here.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, what a wild
But Derek, you see him clear as day.
Yeah.
In the scene, they're playing wizard chess. Hermione comes through the doors.
Yeah.
And Derek walks past holding an owl, like you see him clear as day.
I love it. Yeah. On Harry Potter, too. All right, when you look back at your career through dancing, acting, singing, all of it, what has been the biggest struggle? Like, what has been the thing that's almost broke you at one point, or it's the hardest challenge that maybe we don't see through our screens?
Sometimes feeling like I wasn't doing enough. Or if I wasn't utilizing my skill set to the highest capability, or staying constantly moving. Like, I think having quiet times or lulls, or being between work where you're not working, or you're auditioning and it's not really happening. I think those moments can be very disappointing and make you feel small and not like you're doing enough, right? And I look back on those times now and be like, oh wow, I learned a lot about myself in those times, and ways to, instead of like being like, oh, it's not happening for me. Well, why? Why isn't it? Like, how can I dig deeper? How can I work harder? How can I get better? How can I see this from another angle? You would think, I'm going to use Dancing with the Stars as an example, like being on that show and, having seasons where it doesn't go as well, or taking a break from it, right? It's like you have to train on the off time. You have to still apply yourself. You can always be better. There's always another, like, again, I said earlier, it's another way to do things. And I think when I was a little bit younger, it's like if I felt like it wasn't happening fast enough or I had downtime, I was never good at sitting still. And I think that's because my whole life I've been competing.
Going.
And my wife helped me a lot with that.
Interesting.
A lot, because like I would have moments where I was like, I need to be busy. Okay, like literally couldn't sit still without having some idea, whether it's like I gotta be doing this or I got this idea for this, I gotta execute. And yes, it's good to hustle and it's good to be proactive and it's good to chase that dream and Michael Phelps it and not give up and do all that stuff. But sometimes being able to sit with yourself and be in silence and spend that downtime, I felt like I've learned a lot more about my craft and myself as an artist in those times, because it drove me to dig deeper. Well, why not? Why isn't this happening? What am I missing here? And like that I struggled with that, having downtime. I really struggled with it. Or like, I took a 5-year break from dancing. I did lots of other stuff, but there was moments of just stillness that were at the time really difficult. And now it's not till like later I'm like, oh, actually those times helped me fall in love with it again, or get better at it, or see it from a different angle. And I think I think those type of things like really kind of change the game for me as well. And they give you anxiety too, like, which can be quite
kind of some of it.
Crushing.
I mean, like being enough is a big struggle. Imposter syndrome is a big struggle. And when you live in a world that's hyper competitive and everyone is extremely successful at what they're doing, you start to benchmark yourself against everyone else as opposed to yourself. And when you're surrounded like these unbelievably talented people like a Tartick Huff and Julian Huff and everyone else, if you have one step back and they keep moving forward, those things can get in your head a little.
And the cool thing is with them is like Derek and I have had long, extensive conversations about these types of things as well. And we are really like brothers, and we've been there for each other through each other's ups and downs and stillness and this, that, and the other, And, during my season with Charlie, my wife and I had a miscarriage during the season.
Oh, during the season.
Yeah, so we talked about it probably a year later. But the Viennese waltz we did was very much dedicated to that. Like that, letting the balloon go. And I just got goosebumps.
I did too, actually.
Like, because I decided to go back to the season, found out my wife was pregnant, and then that week we found that we had a miscarriage, and I had to go to rehearsal, and and that was a really heavy time. And I think at the time Derek was one of the only people who knew. Obviously my wife, my family, and I told Charlie and her mom and Heidi and stuff, and that was like the close group that helped me get through that, and that was very hard, very difficult time, because you're on this, it just goes to show, right? You watch these shows, like whether it be Dancing with Stars, The Bachelor, Is It Cake, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a great show.
And you just don't know where people are at. You don't know and even though we're providing this entertainment, like, I was top 5 hardest moments of my life, I'll say, and the show is so great with how they helped me navigate that week and stuff like that. But again, like, it's not just a week of grief. I still think about that and like, and again, the reason I spun to that is because there are those times during something that feels so, oh, you're on Dancing with the Stars. Oh, you're on Broadway. You're doing this. But we're all human and we have human experiences. And that was a very wild experience for me, from going from the heaviness of that and seeing the person I love the most go through that. And then having to provide the highest quality of competition and dancing that I can provide at that time. So there are those moments, but I feel like in those moments you learn, again, more about yourself. And I was lucky to have a good support system, and Derek being one of them who, really had my back.
And I think too, that just perspective, like, I brought up imposter syndrome and comparing yourself nonstop to other people. When something like this happens in your life, it's the perspective of like, why am I wasting my time on dumb shit like that? 100%. There are meaningful things that will just give you the perspective of like what life is. And that's one of those.
And I feel like later, at the end of the day, like, using dance concert, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always say it's not that serious.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, but it is.
It's not, but it is.
It
You know what I
totally is.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I learned like later on I kind of just like I enjoy watching the others.
Yeah.
Like when I compete, I'm tunnel.
Yeah.
And I'm able to separate from years and years of competing. Like
Yeah.
I can watch my friends do well and get great scores. And
Yeah.
like even when I on the season with Charlie, like when I went home and watched the show and I was watching Val and Gabby compete and I text Val, I was like, bro, you're so good, bro.
Oh, this is when you're preparing to be a judge?
No, this is when we were.
Oh, when you were going back.
We were competing on the show, and like I went home and I would watch it back to see, what could Charlie be better at? What can I be better at?
Totally.
You know, what do we need to do moving forward? And like I watched the whole show, and I text Val, I was like, yo, bro, you're so good.
I love it.
Val and I grew up together competing as well.
All you guys did.
Yeah.
It's like you guys are all like, everyone came from, it's unbelievable.
Where we've known each other for years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, there's always love there for me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we're wrapping up here, and the one thing I got to ask about, especially as we're talking about memories and nostalgia, Len Goodman, everyone knows him, everyone loves him. You have had a lot of time with him.
I have,
What's like one of your favorite memories of Len that maybe we don't know and would only know from you?
Well, if my parents had lessons with Len when she was pregnant with me.
Your mom, did both your Wow.
Yeah. So that's how
That's how deep
I've
it
known
goes.
Len since like birth. Essentially. You know, there is.
You heard his voice while you were just growing away in there.
That voice. That's one of my biggest like things is his voice.
Yeah.
He's so charming and charismatic and funny, and everything and cheeky. Too,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But we had so many memories with him. Like when we were kids. Every year at my mom's dance studio, which was called Starlight, they would host this big pre-Blackpool, which is a big competition party.
Yeah.
And Len would be the MC, and you know we would do little performances of that. Like I have video of Derek and I performing. We're like 15, and you can hear Len on the mic, like, "Here's Mark and Derek," you know, like that classic voice, you know.
Yeah.
But so many memories with him, like just his cheekiness and. What I love the most about him, and this may be the Brit in me, is just the straight shot. Like no messing around. Like it is what it is. He's not sugarcoating it for you. And look, there were weeks where he would let us have it. Like if we we were in the rules, which we were, and then we'd be all upset. And he's like, "Sorry, like
it is what it is.
It is what it is." And like
I love
at
that.
the time when you're young and you're coming up, you're like, because you want to be creative, you want it to be different.
Yeah.
But Len's a purist, and I'm also later a little bit more of a purist. Like I love creative freedom, but I also want to know what dance you're doing.
Sure.
Like just from looking at it.
Yeah.
You know? So I look back on those times from learning so much, and like attribute to him and his feedback how to find the balance, how to not like if we're doing a cha-cha or a jive, like it's got to look like one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and when we would dabble outside of the styles a little bit more, him being so tough helped us rein it in and find the balance of creativity and authenticity to the dance.
Wow.
So I love that man. I miss him very much.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that you were literally in your mom's belly when she was getting dance lessons from
still dancing. I was in there like
you were starting to learn that. It's unbelievable. All right, Mark. Well, there's a million other things we can go into, but we got to wrap up here.
Yeah, man.
Got to get your trading secret. So it's special to you. You can't learn it from a professor or a textbook, only from your experience. What is one trading secret you could leave us with?
It's just short and sweet.
I like it.
And my dad said this to me all the time.
Okay.
It was like the mind is like a parachute, and it works best when it's open. And he would say that to me all the time whenever I was like, I don't want to try that, or I don't want to do that. And my dad would say that to me. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. Be open-minded. Be open to communication. Be open to trying new things. Don't let people tell you no. Like if I listened to people like, you can't do this and that at the same time, I would have never have gone for the other things in my life. I would have only just done one.
Okay.
And I attribute that to having great parents that supported me and friends in my group that lift you up and that want to see you do well, and vice versa. But whenever someone says, "What's the advice you have for someone?" that I can hear my dad's voice saying it to me. It's like,
is that more, is the alignment of that more don't be closed off to things, or is it more just keep everything?
Keep it open. It's open.
Okay.
Everything's a conversation.
Okay.
At least entertain the thought. At least think about it.
Yeah.
Just process it before you say no.
Yeah. But that even connects to when I'm like, what's next? The idea of being linear isn't being fully open.
Exactly.
Right? So
and
it kind of
maybe
connects to
something will be linear
Sure.
for you.
It
might.
Yeah.
You might see it straight away, but you also might have to take some turns, and that's okay. But be open to it, ride the wave, and enjoy the process.
I like it, Mark. That's genius stuff right there. Let everyone know, where can they find everything you have going on?
Yeah, just, what is it on these days? Instagram and the TikTok.
And the TikTok.
Just
Look at you.
I'm trying. Just at Mark Ballas.
Yep, okay.
And then if you want to check out my wife and I's music, it's just at Alexander Gene Official.
Awesome. Mark, it was great to see you on the finale. It was great to see you as a judge. It was great to see you this entire year back in Dancing with the Stars just a little bit. We'll see where it goes from here. Congratulations on your journey, and thanks for sharing all this wisdom.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.